Yes, sir, we do. This is our long-term solution, hopefully. The argument all along against the trauma network, and if you'll remember, H.R. 1299 is something that passed unanimously out of here to set up a trauma trust fund dedicating money only to the trauma network. We passed the identical bill 2 years earlier. This, we think, will solve the problem on a long-term basis.
Representative Carter.
Madam Chair, at the appropriate time.
For motion. Okay. Are there any other questions? No questions. Is anybody from the audience that has anything they would like to input on this? No? Thank you very much. What's the committee's pleasure?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion, further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. All opposed? I think that's it. Unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members
much.
of the committee.
Okay. I just saw Representative Manning come in. Take up House Resolution 1732. On the phone, where are they?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is House Resolution 1732, and it's a study committee to study asthma. It's 5 members of the House and appointed by the Speaker, and the Governor's Office, the Employee Health Benefits Plan, and it's a study committee, 5 days.
Any questions for Representative Manning? All right. What's the pleasure of the committee? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Fine.
Thank you,
very
Madam Chair.
much, Representative Manning. So I'll have to take a brief break here just for a second. Do you have everything? Huh? And which one?
Here's 423. Which one do you want to do first?
What have you got?
423.
Which one's it?
The kidney.
Okay. Well, you're going to present the kidney one also? There's this much on it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll bring all this back in. I gave it to Joyce. It's been out on the floor. Okay, fine. Oh, right. Oh, yeah, it's down here. We haven't passed them out. They'll be in the pile somewhere. Okay, Representative Unterman, Senator Unterman. Sorry, that was a lapse for when you were over in our chamber.
That's okay. I don't mind. I come when I'm called.
Take up
anything.
Substitute to Senate Bill 423. Do you have it? They're coming in. You ready?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And members of the committee, it's my honor to be able to work with the National Kidney and the Georgia Kidney Foundation. For the past year, we've been working on Senate Bill Substitute 423, and this is the certification of dialysis technicians. I recently became interested in this because my very first job at Grady Hospital was working in the kidney transplant unit and working with dialysis patients. And we've worked for the past year and met with different special interest groups, kidney patients, nephrologists, dialysis centers,
in the past year and have worked very diligently. This idea has been kicked around for quite a while, and it's finally now coming to fruition. I can walk through the bill and then answer any questions, but it is the certification of dialysis technicians. It goes through what their qualifications are. Did you want me to walk through
Yes, please.
the whole bill? Okay. It calls for their certification. If you go through on the second page, talks about the implementation. Is Title 43. Section 4 is talks about licensing facilities. Section 5 goes into what the terminology is used for technicians, what dialysis care is, certification. I think everyone serving on the health committee knows that dialysis is the cleansing. It's actually sticking a needle in into a client and taking the blood out and purifying their blood. I'm trying to put it in layman's terms. Purifying their blood and putting it back in, and it's usually 3 to 4 times a week. And it actually is very laborious, intensive. It's very difficult on the client because you're doing it every other day usually, and it lasts for 3 to 4 hours. And if you put in the commute time to go to a center, and it's basically an all-day affair to be dialyzed. So, and to me it was absolutely amazing that someone would be doing this kind of function and not be certified. When you think about people who cut your hair, and barbershops are actually required to get a certificate, but people who are actually sticking you and putting heparin in you and cleansing your blood system and changing your metabolic system, they were not certified. So that's one of the reasons the bill has morphed into, let's see how many pages, 10 pages, because there are a lot of technical related questions about it. It talks about grandfathering on page 4. Folks who are already licensed, they have to be a good moral character. They have to have a high school diploma or a GED. I've talked to kidney patients who actually feel like it's unfortunate that people are actually pulled off the street and started training, and within a couple of weeks they were actually dialyzing folks. So this puts some parameters in and makes sure that these folks become certified. There's national certification tests that are actually done, and this bill requires that certification be the same across the board, so that everyone has the same qualifications and meets those qualifications. If you switch over to page 5, it talks about the certificates and how they're renewed, a voluntary surrender of a certificate, about dialysis centers and how they, most of the dialysis centers usually pay, or they could opt to pay for the application fee and getting these folks certified. I would like to say throughout the whole process, the dialysis clinics throughout the whole state of Georgia, there's several major clinics and franchises, and them along with their nephrologists, they've worked diligently on this bill, and they have been relatively easy to work with. We've made a lot of concessions and changes for the corporations, but I feel like in the end, and that's one of the reasons it's taken a year to get a bill perfected and to come along, because there is a lot of money involved, and wanting to make sure that the patient care is taken care of. Let's see, if you switch over to page 6, it gives the board the powers to be able to look at what the examinations are, to establish minimum standards, to issue, renew, refuse, to hold hearings on any kind of complaints, to look at continuing education and what those parameters are. Moving on to page 7, it talks about one of the problems and one of the issues that's related that we've talked about for the past year is how many dialysis technicians do you have the ratio to registered nurses, and is that registered nurse who is actually over the patients? Are they actually physically in the building? Are they on the property? You know, we've been through the whole gamut, and this bill has been perfected to define those terms and also to talk about what constitutes being a trainee. In 443-30A-6 is actually the actual activities that a dialysis technician, what they're allowed to perform. And this is another area that is very technically oriented, and they had some controversy, but we feel like we've worked the controversy out. It talks about preparing and initiating dialysis. It talks about heparin. Heparin is a chemical substance that's used to coagulate or not coagulate the blood, and it's very important that you administer the correct amount of heparin. For those of you that already know about this, I know the chairman already knows about all this, but heparin is a very powerful thing. It also talks about the actual site and where you have to understand that you're repeatedly sticking these people, 3 or 4 times a week. You usually have a catheter inserted into your arm, and those are very sensitive because they become infected, and you can develop big-time infections if you're not careful of those. It goes on to talk about blood specimens and who can do the blood specimens. It goes on the oversight of the registered nurse that's there and the physician. It goes along on the next page, on page 9, talking about continuing who can perform these services and how they're performed. And on line 9, it talks about the violations and what happens with a misdemeanor, and actually a very strong conviction, fine from $500 to $1,000. So I think this gives the patient, the client, more confidence and lets them know that the government, the state, is actually behind trying to enforce and making sure that they're receiving the best quality care that they can. And the next section on line 15 goes on to talk about the public interest and how we're trying to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. This is a Georgia Administrative Procedure Act. I have been working with the department, the regulatory department, to make sure that we have the compliance standards that they would like to accomplish, and that's why there's another substitute, because we incorporated their ideas since they're the enforcement agency, and to also do the existing standards to make sure that we're enforcing and actually going beyond what the existing standards are. Worked extensively with the Georgia Kidney Foundation and their representatives, and I think some of them are here to speak about it. And again, I can't say how much support I've gotten from kidney patients and trying to work out, y'all may have been called by some of them. The need for this is actually named after Senator Mullis. In the Senate had a father who actually passed away, not from the dialysis treatment, but from a secondary condition from an infection that was started from dialysis, and he felt so strongly about it. But he didn't know how to do the technical part of it. But his father passed away from that, and that's what it's named for.
Thank you, Senator. Are there questions for the Senator? Okay, Representative Brown. 22.
Senator, a couple of questions. You all hear that? First, just sequentially, comes July 1, assuming this passes, Governor signs it. At that point forward, you have to be grandfathered in,
Yes.
and you grandfathered in by having a nurse certify that you can do the duties enumerated in this bill.
It actually has a grandfathering clause in it, and whether you pass the certification test, whether you have the number of years, and it does have a process to take care of those people, yes, sir.
But one of the concerns that I heard today, somebody pulled me out and expressed a concern that there wasn't sufficient time to enact all this, but as I'm reading, it appears, I mean, you're going to have a pretty good rush to get people effective July 1, will you not?
I'm not sure that it's exactly July 1, and I'll let someone else speak to that with the folks from the state or here. It says on and after January 1st, no person may provide dialysis care as a dialysis technician in the state who is not licensed. But, there's if they're not grandfathered, there's trainees and methods to get those people licensed. It's not like we're going to shut down dialysis clinics.
Right.
The provisions are in there to gradually go into it.
Two more questions, if I might. And thank you, I misread that on page 4. At that point, will they be called a dialysis technician if they're grandfathered?
Yes, it's certified.
And the other question somebody else asked me is that the Office of Regulatory Compliance that'll have to do the monitoring of this, somebody told me they felt we needed to put in the budget more staff? Okay,
No, I was never requested any, and they're here today, and they can speak to that.
I congratulate you on a good bill.
Thank you. Cindy Johnson. You need to go to the
Bill also, I'm a little confused from page 8, 4330-9. It says the dialysis technician advisory council shall advise the board, and then on down it says the board shall appoint the council. Is that right?
Where are you, Representative Dawson?
Page 8, line 14, there's created the dialysis technician advisory council which shall advise the board.
Yes.
And then line B says the council, which I guess is the advisory council, shall be appointed by the board. So, I'm confused.
I think the council makes recommendations to the board. That was my understanding.
Advisory.
Well, one of the questions I was trying to figure out, and that just sounds like technical. Who administers this test and where?
There's different companies give national certification tests.
And is it the same basically throughout the state or
It's throughout the nation.
nation?
And usually, I think the way it's going to work is that the companies that employ these folks, that they will pretty much, the understanding and the testimony that I had, that they guide these folks, and it's not a whole lot different than being a registered nurse, except the fact that a registered nurse goes to a professional school, and they help them get their certification.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Jennings.
23. Senator Unnerman, starting, maybe before that, but starting at the top of page 2, we start talking about the board, and I'm just not familiar with the board. Would you tell me something about the board? What is the board?
It's my understanding that the council will support the board, and it's the, what is the?
Board of Nursing.
Board of Nursing. There's someone here from the regulatory office.
Yeah, it's the Board of Nursing. Yeah.
Yes.
Page 2, section 314049 refers to the DHR board under the rules and regulations that we promulgate. So there's actually, in the public bill, there's 2 boards, the Board of Nursing and the DHR board. This one's public. That's basically what goes on.
You're very familiar with this then. Is that clear that which board you're speaking of, since you say there are two boards?
It's references 31, 40, 41, 49, and that's where our regulatory authority is.
Okay, other questions?
May I continue?
And I'll be glad to have them come up and speak.
Okay.
Jenny? Sure.
Also on page 2, you struck out line 22 and some other places, I think, too. Dialysis technician, to make it a reuse technician, but then later on page 7, you're talking about dialysis technician, and I don't understand what I can imagine a dialysis technician, but I don't know what a reuse technician would be.
It's my understanding it's the same thing.
Same
It's the
thing,
same
but you're lining it
terminology.
out and
It means
changing
the same
it.
thing.
Excuse me?
It means the same thing.
But still
Someone
you're...
from the Kidney Foundation, I'm sure, or
Actually, Marty would get things better.
would you like to just come up here for
Tell us who you are, if you will, please. and who
Why
you
don't
have.
Chris come up too? Let Chris talk.
Chris, you want to go ahead and
Chris.
Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Marty Rotter, and I'm Director of DHR's Office of Regulatory Services, and one of the things we regulate is end-stage renal disease clinics, or commonly known as dialysis clinics. The reference on page 2 to the reuse technician is what's in the current law. A reuse technician is an individual. The actual dialysis is done with a particular instrument that under certain circumstances can be reused. The reuse technician's job is to properly clean those in accordance with federal and state regulations. So they're two different kinds of individuals. It's possible that the same person could do both, but they're two different tasks.
Thank you. Thank you. Then...
The old times, the nurse did both tasks, and that's why I said they're the same thing.
Okay, all right. There are two different jobs, and some
Yeah.
nurses
Usually
are
do.
capable of doing both of them,
Yeah.
where these technicians are probably not. I also just like to add, I can remember past committee meetings where there were significant complaints about
Exactly.
dialysis
Yes.
treatment, and so I'm pleased that you're
Yes.
doing something about it.
Yes, when I was served in the House, that was the impetus. We had hordes of people that would fill up the room complaining about the quality of care.
Yes,
And yes, we've come a long ways.
thank you.
I'd like to ask the legislative council, do we need to be consistent on that?
Well, it's two different things. Those first sections are amending current law, which essentially DHR now regulates to a certain extent the dialysis technicians. So what we're trying to delineate is that now DHR will still regulate the reuse technicians and whatever standards they will come under, and then the new scheme later on in the bill is the new structure under the Georgia Board of Nursing that will regulate the actual dialysis technicians.
Okay. Other questions for the Senator? Or Representative Bird?
I'm number 5.
You got it. It's on.
Okay. Senator, if a person wants to become a dialysis technician, this will be a certification.
Yes.
Where are they going to take this program, and how long is the program?
We had talked about the technical schools as a part of technical education. They could enroll in a technical school, or they could actually go to work for a company as a trainee and be brought along as a trainee working and become certified. But
So
it
is-
is a certification. They have to take a nationally certified test.
And how long is the program? So if I wanted to become a dialysis technician, is it a 2-year program, 6 months?
I think you had talked about it, wasn't it? Or the technical?
Yeah, the course is technical school is a year.
Yeah.
Among the dialysis centers is the actual curriculum is defined, and so they can go for, 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
If you go to technical school, it would be a year program. It would be similar to like a medical office assistant program.
Other questions for the Senator? Okay, now, do we have anybody else in the audience that would like to speak to this bill? Yeah, okay.
We have some folks signed up here. Would you like the sheet?
Yes, please. Chris Starr.
Thank you. My name is Chris Starr. I'm CEO for the National Kidney Foundation of Georgia. I've been in that job, and thank you all very much, Madam Chairman, for having me here. Thank you for your leadership on this issue. I've been there 11 years, and when I started my first summer there, I went to the funeral of a 32-year-old man who had been hooked up to a dialysis machine, and the machine was started while it still had the formaldehyde solution, cleaning solution, in the artificial kidney. And I asked a lot of people how that could happen and what we might do. And that started the day we are here today, because so many people have gotten together, patients, the industry, and other people, and we're here at this point in our history book, and we just thank y'all. This is so needed. This is so necessary, and we're just very grateful that y'all are taking this on. Thank y'all.
Questions? Andy Freeman.
Madam Chair, I'll be very brief. Thank you for having us here today. I wear many hats here, a lobby for various clients, but today I'm one of 17,000 Georgians that's on dialysis, and I'm just happy to be here that support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Let's see. Forrest Rawls. You must not be on the...
Good afternoon, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Forrest Rawls, and I'm a certified dialysis technician. I've been a dialysis technician for 31 years, trained in the United States Navy, having passed plenty of certifications through JCO. As the president-elect of the National Association of Nephrology Technicians and Technologists, we encourage dialysis technicians to become certified. NANT firmly believes that technician certification will have a significant impact on the quality of care for the patients in Georgia with chronic kidney disease. Technicians have the most direct patient contact in the course of a routine dialysis treatment. Yet, we are the only ones in direct patient care positions that are not required to be certified. With the current and continuing shortage of nurses, it is imperative, we believe, that certification of technicians be mandated. We support this bill 100%. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. I think we still have one person maybe that didn't get to sign up. Come forward, just tell us who you are.
My name is Gary Horlacher. I'm an attorney at Alston Bird, but represent the Fresenius dialysis providers, Fresenius and DaVita. And they have worked with Senator Unterman and all the other groups to help craft this legislation and get it to the point where it is, and they are very supportive of the certification. They do have and have expressed ongoing one issue that is one line. It was referenced by Representative Brown on page 4 of the draft that passed the Senate. I don't have the current draft. But the providers think there is a gap between when this program will be implemented on January 1st of 2007 and when the grandfather clause kicks in, which is July 1st of 2006. And so that 6-month gap plus whatever additional months there are when the licensing board actually implements the certification program. And dialysis technicians, because of the strenuous nature of the job and the ongoing pipeline, they're concerned that that 6 to 9 month gap will leave technicians who are taking programs but have no certification. That will leave them out of the process. And they've been told that there are some licensing board flexibility in interpreting that. However, the providers, national providers, have run up on this very issue in West Virginia and have not been able to get those people certified. So that's the one and only sticking point in the whole bill.
Okay. Representative Carter.
Sir, what suggestion would you have to rectify this?
It's a very simple line, something to the effect, this would be on page 4, deem training programs in existence prior to July 1, 2006 as approved for the purposes of 4330A-2 subsection A until such time as the board has approved or disapproved them. I think I gave that language to the chairman. I don't know if it got
I think
hands, but I've got it here and share it. But it's all they're trying to do is say, if you're taking the course.
Okay.
Okay, Representative Dawson.
Do you know, or does Mr. Starr, somebody know, do we have certified dialysis technicians in the state today? We do, don't we? How many? What percentage? What? Okay, the chairman-elect should tell. What percentage of the dialysis technicians would be certified today, approximately?
15%, sir.
15?
The national providers have standards, and what may not be technical certification, I think, would more than meet or exceed.
So it sounds like we do need to do something about this date, or either we will be caught with a very, very low number of technicians, right?
That those in that 6 to 9 month pipeline might get somehow determined to be not properly certified.
Senator, on your minute.
Could I just have the person from the regulatory office here? Is he still here? Could you just respond?
Well, that would really be an issue for the nursing board to respond to in terms of what their procedures are. So I really don't have that information.
Right, another one. Do you have any problem with the amendment, Senator?
Well, I know, I can just tell you from personal experience in the last year that some of the companies, the industry, has been reticent because this is costing them money. Because they're either going to have to get these folks certified and they're in the process, or they're having to set it up. And they have been resistant to change, and I have nudged them along. And I don't mind giving an extra 6 months, but the problem is I don't want them saying, we can't do it and whining and moaning about it. And here the state of Georgia is one of the last in the nation to require this. So in the past year, I can tell you that has been the case, and that's why I'm not jumping up here on the bandwagon, because I've heard the song and dance before.
All right, would you be amenable to the 2 dates matching, or was that what we need to do, or another 6 months to?
Need to push it back to December 31st, 2007?
They're not trying to wiggle out or in any way extend. They're asking only that if you're enrolled currently, by the time you get to January 1st, and by the time the licensing board actually implements, just accept what they've been doing, particularly the national providers. It would more than meet or exceed that standard. So just accept what they've been doing so that they're not locked out. That's all that language is intended to mean.
Wouldn't they be grandfathered?
Well, can we have somebody from the board who works with the boards?
Right. The grandfather before July 1st of 2006. It's only this 6 to 9 month window.
Then what if we moved that by on? Let's make it if the senator would be amenable to it, if we said on or after July 1st, 2007. That's a year for anybody.
All the folks are going to be grandfathered, and that's why a whole year to me is
too much. Can I have somebody?
We certainly appreciated already the extensive time that was given to January 1, 2007 for the fact that people had to have a license. I mean, that was I'm not like claiming I'm the visionary for professional licensing boards, and while we don't take a position on a practice issue or whether or not a profession should be licensed, we are partly responsible for the implementation of this bill.
if you change the January 1st, 2007, say to March the 1st, 2007, that would be an additional 3 months. That would be okay? Okay.
I must not be articulating properly.
Yes.
It's that defines, that solves Molly's issue, but all we're asking for, I'll back up again, from July 1st to now March 1st, is those who are currently taking the courses. Just put in language that would allow them to be certified by complying with the curriculum, but not getting up to the...
No, you can't do
that. Okay.
You have to take the test. You have to go to school and be tested.
Right. No,
it's like being a registered
Wait a minute.
nurse.
Wait just a minute.
Right. They're taking the test.
Wait just a minute. Okay. Senator Unterman, on your next bill on pain, I know that Representative Graves, who's a licensed pharmacist, worked a great deal on that bill.
Yes.
Would you allow him to present that bill again? We've already talked about it one time.
Sure.
And the three of you step outside. We need legislative council to go with you and solve this, and then we'll come back in and take a vote on this one. Thank you. Okay. Representative Graves. The Senate. This is a substitute to Senate Bill 109 LC 331550S. It's okay. We've got a quorum. It's okay. Okay. Huh? What? So we've got 11.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. If you all remember, Senate Bill 109, we had a lot of discussions about it one day, and also House Bill 1008, which dealt with palliative care, and which ultimately passed this committee, is now over in the Senate. There's been a lot of work on this bill just dealing with pain. And if you'll remember, the ultimate goal of this was to allow patients who are in pain today to be able to, at the doctor's discretion, to receive higher than normal doses of pain medication if their particular disease state so deemed it. And the ultimate goal was to relieve those healthcare providers from liability when they were just trying to take care of their patients. I'll just briefly run through the substitute that you have in front of you, which is LC 33-1550S. First page just starts some findings based upon, things that are just out there. Then once you get to page 2, starting with line 6, those are the definitions. One of the things, if you notice the first definition, which is accepted guideline, that is one of the crux of this bill, because when we get over to the liability portions, it talks about that any health care provider shall be immune from criminal liability and disciplinary action for prescribing, dispensing, administering the medical treatment of therapeutic purpose, relieving pain in accordance with an accepted guideline. And what we did was we cleaned this up. We have spoken with several pain management practices throughout the state to what their accepted guidelines are. And if you'll notice, it says it is a pain management strategy developed by a nationally recognized clinical or professional association, specialty society, accreditation organization, or government-sponsored agency that is reasonably relied upon by a significant number of physicians, hospitals, hospices, clinical experts in the field of pain management. And while that's pretty wordy, and that was one of my concerns was, gosh, what are those agencies or, professional associations? Well, when I looked into this, they are numerous in the pain management world, especially if you have, whether it's just an oncologist that deals with pain specifically, dealing with cancer pain issues, or you go to other practitioners that deal specifically with pain. Those guidelines are there, and so they're rather extensive. Also, we changed part of that section and have placed it back on page 4, if you'll turn to that, at the bottom, starting with line 29. For a guideline to be an accepted guideline for the purpose of this article, it must conform to the intent of the article and must not be inconsistent with the provisions of this code section. The appropriate regulatory board may, by rule or public announcement published on the board's website, establish that any particular guideline otherwise qualified to be an accepted guideline is not accepted guideline on the grounds that it is inconsistent with the provisions of this section. And that continues on. And one thing that's really important, if you look on the last page, page 5, still continuing in that section, on line 3, guidelines established primarily for the purposes of coverage, payment, or reimbursement do not qualify as accepted guidelines. So if a reimbursement company says this is going to be the guideline you follow, that's not an accepted guideline. That's not health care based. That's reimbursement based, and we wanted to make that very clear. Basically, as you run through it, the liability, being immune from liability is extended to the health care providers on page 3, line 8, pharmacist on line 13, the hospice, hospital, other institution or medical facility on line 18, the pharmaceutical manufacturer on line 23. And then as we continue on, another important section is on page 4, starting on line 6. Nothing in this article shall be construed as to expanding the authorized scope of practice of any health care provider. Also, nothing in this article shall prohibit disciplinary action or prosecution against a health care provider for these 5 things listed here, which includes, just being able to have their accurate and current records available, writing any false or fictitious prescriptions for controlled substance based upon federal law, prescribing, dispensing, or administering in violation of the federal law, diverting medications for a patient for the provider's own use, and one that was really important to a lot of groups concerned, starting on line 21, number 5, causing the suicide, euthanasia, or mercy killing of anyone. That is not what the intent of this bill is. The intent of this bill is to be sure that those health care providers, which are doing the best for their patients and trying to relieve the pain caused by severe diseases, that they're allowed to do that without having to fear criminal activity or investigations brought upon them. Now, I'll just close my explanation with one of the physicians that I spoke with in Macon, an anesthesiologist who actually deals with chronic pain on a daily basis. He said, I do this, and I'm so glad to see that the state is doing something about this. And he brought to mind a patient of mine and his who actually died about 7 years ago. He said, the amount of pain medicine that I had her on would have raised eyes of almost anyone that investigated that and looked into it. He said, but if you'll remember her, the day before she died, she was planting pansies in her front yard, completely pain-free, and died that night in her sleep. So I think what you have before you is a very time-exhaustive and good effort working with, I want to thank the Georgia Hospital Association and those groups, others that actually brought me some language to deal with, all the associated hospital groups, the provider groups got together. I think you have a very good bill that just allows physicians to treat their patients in pain to the best of their medical ability to let those patients be pain-free in their final days. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. I think you do have some. Representative Byrd.
Representative Graves, I've always had concerns about this bill from the onset. Now, I understand that this is someone who has been diagnosed with some horrible disease and they're in a lot of pain, and we are going to let their caregiver or a nurse or someone give them the maximum amount of doses of whatever controlled substance they're taking so that they are totally pain-free. Is this correct?
That is correct.
Now, when you are in hospice, my understanding, my mother was in hospice for a very short period of time. We are not God, so we have no idea how long you're going to be in hospice. And I still have trouble doing the major substance control drugs to give them the maximum ability, and then then no one's liable. How do we know that that person has not died from this overdose?
I don't know that you could, I don't know that anything in this bill, nor any bill that we pass, could answer that particular question for you.
That's
there
correct.
are, if you go back to, and I call your attention back to what I pointed out, page 4, line 21, section 5, causing suicide, euthanasia, or mercy killing of any individual, as it goes on there, that's not the intention. And if that is proven that that happened, then I suppose there's still that out there. But all we're trying to do is, and I may be over-speaking my role here. It was Senator Underman's bill, and I don't know exactly the total where this started from. But in today's litigious society, somebody is going to step out there, and in a time when a family member has lost their life, they have died due to the disease state. The physicians and healthcare, providers are out doing the best they can to make it a pain-free death, which is eventually, it's going to happen due to the disease. And we're just trying to make it easier for them to provide that level of care and degree of medication to ease that pain at that time. And that's all this bill does. I think you still have safeguards in there.
Well, let me think about it.
I just really would like to thank both Senator Unterman and Representative Graves for working on this bill. It's been a good bill. I had a very dear friend whose mother just passed away this past December, was in hospice. They dealt with the medications. She told me about the different controls of it the night her mother died. Hospice was there. They came, they took away the drugs and all of the things, about the time they had to increase it during one of the weeks. I mean, this was pancreatic cancer, and it was something that went on for about she did live longer than they had anticipated, a few weeks longer. But it was because of the medicines and the extra doses she needed to make her more comfortable and all that, enabled them to have those last 3 weeks to be as comfortable as possible for this lady. Whether she had died a day earlier or a day later was not the issue. It was trying to make her comfortable. And at the proper time, Madam Chair, I'd like to be recognized for a motion.
Well, thank you, Representative Henson, and I appreciate that. It's just, nobody is wanting to allow inappropriate medical care or inappropriate practice in this bill. We're just trying to make it very clear and understood that in cases where pain management is so difficult that we can go a little outside the realm of the patient or the package insert to allow, because people's pain tolerances and people's tolerance to medication do vary from patient to patient, drug to drug, and I think this is just a good step forward.
Thank you, Representative Graves. Do we have another question?
I was just going to move to pass if you're ready for a motion.
No, we thank you, though, for that, Representative. We've got a couple of offers already. Is there anybody in the audience that would like or has comments about this bill? Okay. I think Representative Henson wanted to make the motion. Representative Henson. Okay. Do Representative Bragg get a second? For further discussion, I will tell you, and I want to thank Senator Unterman also for this bill, and thank Representative Graves for all the work you did on this. I sent it out also to Dr. Taylor here, who is a specialist in pain management. There is a letter that you might want to see. A couple of years ago, Georgia was deemed a failure at controlling pain for patients. And as his letter says, with the passage of this, hopefully, we will certainly be up to what 30-something other states are doing in trying to take care of their citizens or who are in intractable pain or who are dying and in pain. So I just wanted to let you all know that. What is we have a motion and a second. what's the pleasure of the committee? Oh, got it. Never mind. It's late in the day. All right. Everybody in favor, raise your hand. Right hand. Anyone opposed? Your left. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
So, Senator Unterman, have you all worked out that?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate y'all working on that bill. And there are some advocacy groups that are here, and I asked them not to speak. Kel McDonald, his advocacy group for patients, and has worked diligently on that bill, and we're appreciative. We did work out an agreement, Madam Chairman, and we changed the date to March the 1st on page 4. If you'll turn to line 10, look at line 10. Change that date from January 1st, 2007 to March the 1st, 2007. And if you go on down on the same page, line 21, the effective date would be before March 1st, 2007. And also the other two places on line 29, from July 1st, 2007 and 2006 to March the 1st, 2007 and March the 1st. So the dates are consistent.
Is there any opposition to the changes, to those changes?
And I would like to say that there was one statistic that I failed to give you. Andy Freeman said there's 17,000 patients currently on dialysis. By the year 2011, our generation, the baby boom generation, there's going to be 35,000 patients on dialysis in Georgia.
Goodness.
35,000 are projected.
What's the pleasure of the committee? This is the proper time. We have a motion for pass. Representative Mack. Second. Any other discussion? Representative Hobson.
Didn't think we had another date.
Senator, will you just make sure when we finish voting that
March 1st. That would be on line 4. And the effective date, that's the date I looked at. I'm sorry, Representative Dodson, is the last page, and it still stays July 1st, 2006.
All right. We have a motion and a second. What's the pleasure of the committee? Everybody in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Anyone opposed? Thank you. I think you have it unanimously.
Thank you. I
Senator.
appreciate it.
Okay. Moving on, we have Senator Schaefer with Senate Bill 596.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the committee.
Okay, and we're working off substitute. Let's see. Let me find it.
LC 14948OS. Is that right?
0. Yes, that's it. Okay. Y'all have the. Does everyone have the bill? Okay, Senator, go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Most people believe that embryonic stem cell and stem cell are one and the same, but they're not. The umbilical cord, the placental tissue, and the amniotic fluid are rich in stem cells that can be used for scientific treatment and scientific research and medical treatment without destroying human life at any stage of development. Sadly, in Georgia, postnatal tissue and fluid is treated as medical waste and routinely thrown away after each newborn delivery. Senate Bill 596 that you have in front of you is named for Keon Penn, a young man from my home of Gwinnett County who at the age of 6 months was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia. He suffered a stroke at the age of 5. The doctors told his mother that a second stroke was inevitable and would almost certainly be fatal, and that he had less than 3 years to live. They told her about an experimental therapy with stem cells. She agreed, and they spent over a year trying to find a stem cell that matched. It came from a umbilical cord that had been donated in the state of New York in 1992. It only matched 5 of the 6 tags and was not of the same blood type, but the doctors felt that it was a close enough match. They injected it in his bone marrow, and within 3 days his blood type had changed from O to B, and today he is 20 years old, a graduate of Shiloh High School, and completely free of sickle cell anemia, and was with us the day that the Senate unanimously passed Senate Bill 596. This bill will make sure that the next sick person who needs a stem cell for medical treatment will not have to go out of state or wait a year or settle for a stem cell that doesn't match or changes his blood type. It creates a network of tissue and fluid banks, and it gives every pregnant woman an opportunity to donate the postnatal tissue and fluid following the delivery to that network of tissue and fluid banks, so that the stem cells from that bank can be used for scientific research and for medical treatment. The committee substitute really makes two changes. There's some definitional changes that the chairman and I agreed upon, and since they're her changes, she might want to address them in a moment. And then there's also there was some on page 3, the section dealing with the newborn umbilical cord blood initiative. We rephrased the charge of the commission on the newborn umbilical blood initiative to make pregnant women available of the full range of blood banking alternatives, both donating to the newly created public bank and also making them aware of options for private storage. There are over 65 cures and treatments that have been developed from postnatal or non-embryonic stem cells, and I'm convinced that this is a bill that will help us cure disease and alleviate human suffering, and that steers clear of ethical controversy over embryonic stem cell research. And I'd ask this committee to report it out with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you very much, Senator. And the changes that he's talking about on definitions are on page 2. This had been a very broad bill, apparently, over in the Senate, and with a totally different area of research included, and they had left 3 definitions in, and Sewell Brumby, the head of Legislative Council, thought that it was cleaner and neater and the way it should be as we write our law to go with the way it is now with the definition. So that's what changed on that.
We consolidated three definitions into a single new definition.
Into the non-embryonic stem cell research. Because the author was very specific that we wanted to make sure that it was non-embryonic. And that's what Legislative Council thought this definition was the best. Are there questions for the Senator? Representative Cowan. Any questions? Okay. Representative Cowan.
Okay, I'll take one that maybe everybody else know the answer to, but, there's been a lot of, talk about this particular area, and I'm glad that something's being done in a more scientific way as it relates to it. But maybe what makes stem cells? Okay, so in other words, from the perspective, what makes it so the stem cells that come from those from the different areas, not the necessarily, as you say, not the fetus, not the human embryo, but what makes it so potent? I mean, is it just everything in our DNA is made into it, or what makes that? How has it been able to cure the diseases that it has? So can anybody tell me from the scientific side of it, how does it all work?
Well, I'm capable of giving you a very layman's answer. Basically, our body's made up of cells. Your skin's made up of skin cells. Your bone marrow is made up of bone marrow cells. Your brain of brain cells. A stem cell is a cell that hasn't yet decided what kind of cell it's going to be. So you can grow stem cells into blood cells or into brain cells or into bone cells. The human embryo is made up of stem cells because it hasn't yet, at our earliest stage, the cells haven't differentiated into the different types of the body, and that's where there's been enormous controversy. But there are also stem cells other than in embryos, and they're in the umbilical cord blood, they're in the amniotic fluid, they're in the placental tissue, and we throw that away. And we've already found uses for those types of stem cells, and I think it's a tragedy that we're disposing of.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chairman, I guess since I'm the only independent here, I'm going to ask a question that's probably not popular. But on page 3 in the makeup of the committee, Line 24, 4 members shall be appointed by the lieutenant governor, or if the lieutenant governor belongs to a political party other than the political party in which a majority of the members of the Senate belong, the Senate Committee on Assignments make this, I guess. If we're going to do it there, if we're going to be tacky there, why not be tacky on the House side, too?
Well, I mean, in the House, the members of your body choose your speaker. In the Senate, the members of our body don't choose our president, who's the lieutenant governor. Virtually every bill that we've passed in the last 3 years has given the power to appoint Senate nominees to the Senate Committee on Assignments, because the Senate's in a different in the control of a different party than the lieutenant governor. I'm being optimistic, and I think that it'll be lined up next year. But,
well, I know you are, but how come we just don't leave it to the Committee on Assignments instead of specifying it like that?
Well, I mean, you know, certainly you're free to change the bill. My thinking is that if the lieutenant governor is of the same party as the majority of the members of the Senate, that he should make the appointments, and if he's not, then the Senate itself should make the appointments through its Committee on Assignments.
Well, I don't want to amend your bill, but I just think that's kind of...
Okay. Representative Maddox.
Senator Schaefer, I have two questions. Number one is, well, first of all, I'm for the bill. I think it's great. But then number one is, when will the umbilical cord blood bank start? Will it start before the commission is finished? The reason I'm saying that, you look over here and it says 15 members, and the deadline, or not deadline, but the starting line is, what did it say, July 1st, 2006, which is about 3 months from now. All appointments of 15 got to be made. They got to be sworn in. Then the commission would have to work. When would the pool bank start, and could you get it started by July 1st of 2006?
You're reading it correctly. The commission itself will come into existence this year, and then if you look on page 2 at line 29, the commission would create the bank itself no later than June 30th.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't.
So it would have a year to do
Didn't see that. Okay.
Give us another session if we need to perfect the law.
Great.
Thank you, Representative Maddox. Okay, Representative Brown.
I mean to start a controversy with the question. It's ignorance, possibly, but we have heard a lot of controversy on stem cell research. Given what this bill would provide, can we expect the range of possible cures versus the embryonic?
I mean, those who are supporters of embryonic stem cells research will tell you that the embryonic stem cells are more potent and that the range of possible cures is greater. But the record is a little bit different. I mean, of the 65 cures and treatments that have been developed from stem cells, all 65 have come from non-embryonic stem cells. The embryonic stem cells have yet to produce any cures or treatments. Now, in fairness, what the supporters of embryonic stem cell research will tell you is that we've only been studying human embryonic stem cells for less than 10 years, and it will take more time. But we've been studying, stem cells from mouse embryos since 1981, and we've yet to cure a single mouse with embryonic stem cell research. So I would be in the category of those who are a little skeptical about the promise of embryonic stem cell research. But that's not addressed one way or another in the bill. All we're trying to do is save these umbilical cords that are being thrown away and advance a type of stem cell research that we know is producing cures.
Thank you.
Representative Thomas? Do you have that? Oh, okay. Representative Byrd.
Now, is someone pregnant women going to sign off on this type of thing to say that they are giving their umbilical cord for this research?
Absolutely. She'd have to consent to donating the postnatal tissue and fluid.
Another question, please. And we are creating a new commission?
We're creating a new commission, that's correct.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Okay, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this issue? Okay. So come forward and tell us who you are, who you're with.
Good evening. My name is Patrick McKeown. I'm not here at this moment, thank you, Madam Chairman, and the numerous members of the esteemed committee. I'm not here in this moment as a Georgian from the 41st District who voted for the chairperson. I am not here in this moment as a biochemistry student from Georgia Tech. I am not here in this moment as a research assistant from the Georgia Tech Research Institute, although all these things are among things that I do call myself. I am here in this moment as a young man with concern for what is next, and my thoughts right now are with the future. I wish to state my support for the cord blood initiative and my encouragement for postnatal stem cell research here in Georgia.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. What's the pleasure of the committee? All right. We have a. We're in the mode of any other further discussion. We have a motion and then a second. Any other discussion? If not, everyone in favor of the substitute to Senate Bill 596, raise your right hand. All opposed? Thank you very much. It passes. Thank you, Senator, for working with me. That's our last bill today, and I do want, before we adjourn, to thank our committee. We will probably not be meeting again. Thank y'all for coming and staying late with us. Thank you very much.